Bring awareness to the notch where your forearm meets your upper arm, that living hinge where sensation pools when you bend and release. Now consider the hidden recess of the armpit, the shaded hollow that tightens when you brace against worry, and softens when you finally exhale. Suppose that simple, rhythmic tapping on these sites could act as a direct instruction to your body to begin a self-correction process. This is presented not as conjecture, but as a hands-on discipline, a physical practice guarded and passed from teacher to student, remembered because it works when done with attention. In the mythic memory of the Nile, its custodian is the ibis-headed master called Thoth, patron of learning and the healing arts. Tradition holds that the human form carries 8 discrete gateways that can be awakened to restore motion in the vital currents that ease pain, steady mood, and influence metabolism. Each gateway, when engaged with care, confers a specific advantage, yet the deeper effect appears only when the 8 are woven in sequence, like beads that make sense as a necklace. What follows is the first doorway, and a method to engage it immediately, with the understanding that the full shift belongs to the whole pattern learned and practiced as one. Think of the method as a conversation with an older intelligence you already carry. You are not installing a foreign part or forcing a dramatic overhaul. You are reminding the system to do what it knows, loosen what is stuck, nourish what is depleted, quiet what is alarmed. The simplicity is deliberate. Begin where you can feel results without belief. Notice how the shoulders round forward when fear rises, how breath grows shallow, and how the chest stiffens. Place a cupped hand in the underarm and tap lightly enough to make a hollow tone, a soft drum that vibrates the ribs. Breathe through the nose, slow and steady. Within a few beats, warmth gathers. Within a few more, the inhale deepens and the exhale lengthens. You are not forcing change. You are reopening a door the body had closed to protect itself. Imagine the God scribe sketching a body crossed by rivers of light and marking 8 gates at the bends. Open a gate and push nothing. The river carries itself once the snag is gone. You trust sensation over spectacle, rhythm over drama, practice over proclamation. Only one caution is needed, and it matches every durable craft. Respect sequence. The 8 portals behave the same way. Each one offers a local gift, soothing, clearing, or steadying. But lasting change belongs to the circuit that ties them together. Today you will meet the first doorway, learn how to knock and listen for the reply. Tomorrow you will add the next and the next, until the loop closes and the system remembers the pattern on its own. Tapping works because the body answers rhythm. Percussive input mobilizes fluid, warms fascia, and tells the nervous system that guarded areas are safe to release. It is mechanical and energetic at once, bridging language for those who think in tissues and for those who think in currents. The form is simple. A cupped palm creates resonance without force. The count keeps attention honest. The breath anchors the mind to sensation. You do not need ceremony, only consistency and a willingness to listen. Accumulated tension will not dissolve in a minute, but minutes repeated become hours, and hours become a new baseline. Loosen silted bends so water can move. The garden then waters itself. You are about to touch the first gate, not as a superstition but as a skill. You will ask with touch, wait 2 breaths, and listen for warmth, heaviness, or ease as your answer. If nothing answers today, return tomorrow without judgment. Craft is repetition, and if you accept the premise that your organism carries the seed of its own recovery, set intention now, so the work has a frame. Give yours a clear phrase and let it ring through your chest as you begin. My body is my temple. Say it once with conviction, then let the practice prove it. 1 measured tap and 1 patient breath at a time. Recovery begins with the coordinated inner fire, not with devices. The opening sentence creates a technology versus energy contrast to reframe perception. The body is not a machine to be replaced when broken, but a garden that needs constant care. From that frame, the text develops a consistent hydraulic metaphor. QE as water, meridians as canals, silt as stagnation. When flow slows, silt thickens, function declines, and symptoms surface. The goal is therefore not to add something foreign, but to awaken what is already your inheritance. These metaphors turn a metaphysical claim about energy into an operational roadmap. clear blockages, drain, and restore the current. The second layer builds symbolic authority. The setting of Kemet, Thoth, and the Ebers and Smith papyri is invoked as a primal repository of knowledge. This is a familiar ethos technique. Link a simple practice to ancient origins to reinforce legitimacy. At the same time, the author restrains the sensational by reading the Osiris, Set, and Isis myth as a lesson in cycles of dissolution and reassembly, not a display of miracles. The focus lands on formulas and laws, implying that healing is a craft that can be learned, transmitted, and repeated, rather than a supernatural privilege. The image of pharaohs seeking counsel adds ceremonial gravitas and lowers reader resistance when they are invited to try a very ordinary action like tapping. The core message is the democratization of capacity. The spark of renewal is an inborn right, not the monopoly of magi or clergy. The body is called a temple with keys hidden in plain sight, creating a sense of agency. The keys are present, the task is to learn how to turn them. Here the text answers the skeptical question of why knowledge vanished with a river metaphor. Knowledge did not stop. It changed its channel. When it meets a dam, it opens a new course. When formal literature is no longer a hospitable medium, it moves into the skills of healers, midwives, and artisans, and is preserved by practice rather than proclamation. This explanation shifts trust from documentation to usability. What endures is what proves useful. In rhetorical structure, metaphor serves as the track that drives cognition. Miniature cosmos, garden, canal, settled silt, and flow-changing channel interlock, helping the reader move from abstract to concrete. On that base, the act of tapping at flexion points and crossings in soft tissue is instantly reframed. Not an esoteric rite, but a move that stirs the current, loosens adhesions, and frees stagnation so self-regulation returns. In Logos, the causal chain is simple but coherent. Stagnation to disorder, clearing to recovery. In Ethos, the names Thoth, the papyri, and the pharaohs provide symbolic scaffolding. In Pathos, appeals to inheritance and temple, activate dignity and autonomy. The sentence rhythm is short and decisive. Many paired contrasts frame perception. Device versus energy, machine versus garden, adding versus awakening, spectacle versus law. The refrain, knowledge like a river, hinges the scene shift from Egypt to lineages of craft, preserving the core image and keeping momentum. The pair, hands-on discipline and practice over proclamation, moves persuasion from credentials to bodily experience. The reader is invited to try, feel, then conclude. This suits a low-cost, low-risk technique that depends on consistency rather than instant effect. Even so, gaps should be acknowledged plainly. The direct link between the mythical Thoth and evidence-based medical history is more symbolic than factual. The Ebers and Smith papyri are important medical sources, but attributing a specific 8-gate scheme or a tapping method to them is an aesthetic extrapolation. The physiological claims about tapping in this text are not paired with controlled data, so they remain experiential hypotheses. For an awareness opening segment, however, the structure is still reasonable. It does not argue like a scientific paper. It creates the psychological and semantic conditions for the audience to practice safely and observe their own feedback. In sum, the passage functions as a launchpad. It establishes the principle of inner agency, builds symbolic authority to unlock skepticism, then returns control to the individual through a minimalist action. The route is clear. Metaphor guides, myth legitimizes, invitation to self-try follows. If the whole project is viewed as learn by doing, this is the right prelude. It assigns meaning to the action before teaching the action. From a communication view, it optimizes 3 durable factors: simplicity through coherent metaphors, usability through repeatable tool-free steps, and autonomy with the practitioner at the center. These 3 factors bridge an ancient story to a modern habit that can be sustained over time. Core claim: practical healing knowledge moved along trade routes through oral exchange and hands-on craft. Egyptian portal lore met Chinese meridian theory. The merger produced a simple, user-led protocol centered on 8 accessible sites and rhythmic tapping. The passage argues function over spectacle and agency over dependence. Narrative frame. Caravans, oases, dusk conversations. This sets a slow, credible pace. Value is placed on ideas that pass by memory, not on scrolls. That choice elevates practice over archive. It also explains variability. An oral craft adapts to each culture yet keeps a stable core. The scene gives the reader a mental model for transmission. The image of insights as the most valuable cargo is clear and repeatable. Metaphor system. Water, rivers, eddies, hydraulics. The body is a channel network. Stagnation produces symptoms. Stimulation restores flow. This is coherent and operational. It maps easily to action. Find the bends. Clear the eddies. Let circulation resume. The text also redefines voids. They are not empty. They are places of thickened energy. That prevents nihilistic misreadings and keeps the focus on mobilization. Cross-cultural synthesis. Egyptian portals and Chinese meridians are presented as convergent insights. This avoids conflict framing. It places both within a shared problem space. How to manage flow, how to convert blockage into movement. The passage claims complementarity. It then describes integration mechanics, observation, testing, cataloging, and eventual codification. That sequence anchors the syncretism in method, not in myth alone. Method minimalism. The key move is simplification. Needles, heat, and pressure are acknowledged as powerful. Yet the minimum effective action can be tapping. This lowers cost and entry. It turns the patient into a participant. It also improves adherence. A technique that needs no tools can be used daily. The text links tapping to 3 layers at once. Mechanical wake-up of tissue, neural signaling of safety, energetic language for readers who use that map. The bridge invites multiple audiences without forcing a single ontology. Site selection. 4 mirrored pairs at major hinges, underarm, inner elbow, inguinal fold, popliteal crease. The choice has practical logic. Many vessels and nerves pass near the surface at joints. Lymph nodes cluster at axilla and groin. Venous return is challenged behind the knee. Flexion zones are prone to mechanical compression and reduced glide. Symmetry simplifies recall. Accessibility supports self-treatment. The pattern satisfies the reader's need for structure. Rhetorical balance. The tone is confident yet non-mystical. It denies spells and mantras. It affirms protocol and repetition. That protects credibility in mixed audiences. The text also lists observed outcomes in specific terms. Calm breath, quieter mind, easier digestion, better leg lightness. It avoids extravagant promises. Effects are local and systemic by network logic, not by magic declaration. This keeps expectations within a reasonable band. Agency and ethics. The argument returns control to the individual. No special setting is required. No gatekeeper is needed. The method respects bodily feedback. This is a strong ethical stance. It reduces dependence and cost. It also shifts responsibility. The reader must practice. The text frames this as empowerment, not as burden. That is persuasive for self-care messaging. Pedagogy. The passage uses a clean arc. Story to map, map to method, method to routine. Each step closes a gap. The story answers why, the map answers where, the method answers how, the routine answers when. The language is concrete. Counts are not given here, which keeps the section focused on rationale. A later section can add exact dosing. This separation of layers keeps cognitive load low. Limits and cautions. The synthesis is historical in spirit, not documentary. No primary sources are cited for the 8-site schema. The physiology claims are plausible, but not tested here. Readers should be told to avoid tapping over acute injury, thrombosis risk zones, fresh scars, or during pregnancy without guidance. Those caveats would strengthen trust. The text implies safety by minimal force. It can add explicit boundaries without breaking flow. Modern reframing. The protocol aligns with current ideas in pain science and autonomic regulation. Gentle, rhythmic input can reduce threat perception. It can improve interoceptive accuracy. It can raise adherence by being simple and portable. The hydraulic metaphor can be mapped to fascia glide, lymph propulsion, and venous return. The energetic language can coexist with that reframing. The passage already hints at this bridge. Measurement and habit design. The claim of consistency improves if the reader tracks outcomes. A short log on breath ease, gut comfort, leg heaviness, and sleep quality would help. The text can suggest morning and evening checkpoints. It can propose 1 minute per site to start. It can teach a stop rule based on tenderness. These are minor additions that convert intent into routine. Net effect. The section is persuasive because it links an evocative origin story to a low-friction behavior. It avoids grandiosity. It emphasizes repeatability. It validates different explanatory frames. It identifies clear anatomical landmarks. It positions the reader as the active agent. To strengthen it further, add safety notes, simple tracking, and a brief acknowledgement of evidence limits. The core remains intact. Clear the bends, restore motion, let the system do the rest. The passage converts a vague energy map into a concrete body map. It names 4 mirrored pairs at familiar hinges: armpits, inner elbows, groins, backs of knees. This lowers abstraction and raises compliance. A reader can find each site without training. Bilateral treatment supports symmetry. It also gives a built-in checklist, left and right, top and bottom. The anatomical logic is sound at a pragmatic level. Each site lies near superficial neurovascular bundles and lymph nodes. The axilla hosts the brachial plexus and major vessels. The groin hosts inguinal nodes and the femoral bundle. The popliteal fossa contains vessels and nerves under a fascial roof. The elbow crease carries cutaneous nerves and superficial veins. Gentle mechanical input here can plausibly alter tone, blood flow, and interstitial fluid movement. No metaphysics is required for basic effects. The armpit paragraph links breath and posture. This is defensible. Anxiety often shortens the diaphragm excursion. Accessory breathing muscles overwork. Protracted shoulders narrow rib motion. Light percussion near the axilla can cue relaxation and scapular unshrugging. That can improve rib mechanics and tidal volume. A calmer pulse can follow from reduced sympathetic drive. The text names both the traditional and modern frames. That invites different readers without forcing a single model. The elbow paragraph ties pericardium language to digestion and rumination. The causal chain is simplified but functional. Tension in arm flexors and forearm fascia can reflect global guarding. Tapping can downshift arousal by rhythmic sensory input. At the same time, the writer hints at gut effects through the brain-gut axis. Patterned safe touch plus slow nasal breathing can reduce perceived threat. Reduced threat can improve motility. The text avoids large promises and stays with reasonable outcomes like calmer thoughts and steadier elimination. The groin section targets reserves and metabolic steadiness. Anatomy supports several practical benefits. Sitting compresses the inguinal fold. Lymph flow slows with immobility. Venous return relies on motion. Gentle tapping can act like a local pump. People often report lighter legs and less lower belly heaviness after such work. The kidney language belongs to a traditional map, yet the operational advice still holds. Wake a stagnant zone. Move more fluid. Expect modest gains in energy and comfort. The popliteal crease section is direct. Tight calves and hamstrings load the pelvis and lumbar spine. The back of the knee is a mechanical choke point when seated. Light percussion can relax the posterior chain by reflex and by attention shift. If venous return is sluggish, any non-painful movement can help. People feel lighter legs and sometimes less low back tension. This is coherent with simple biomechanics. The method prescription is minimal by design. Cupped hand, light rhythmic taps, 36 to 81 counts. Slow nasal breathing. The cupped shape creates a low-frequency thump without bruising. Counting holds attention. Nasal breathing biases parasympathetic tone. The instruction to imagine stale material loosening is a guided reframe. Even if energy language is not accepted, imagery can modulate pain and tone through top-down control. Physiology claims are conservative and mostly plausible. Percussion can mobilize interstitial fluid and warm fascia. Patterned, predictable contact can reduce hypervigilance. This can shrink the background alarm that worsens pain. The Shaw remark acknowledges transient petechial marks after repeated scraping. The passage correctly notes they fade, does not overclaim detox. It links site stimulation to system effects through convergence of channels. That is a traditional phrase, but a similar network idea exists in modern neurophysiology. Many body regions share segmental innervation and reflex loops. Local input can ripple across a circuit. Agency is central. The reader does not need tools or a clinic. A person can participate in recovery rather than wait for a fix. This increases adherence. The routine is easy to remember and short. Top to bottom, both sides at each level. The instruction to value presence over duration is also smart. 2 focused minutes beat 10 distracted minutes. This matches behavior science. Safety boundaries are implied but not explicit. An expanded version should name them. Do not tap over acute injury, infection, suspected deep vein thrombosis, fresh surgical sites, or active skin disease. Use caution with bleeding disorders or anticoagulants. Pregnant people should avoid aggressive work at the groin and seek guidance. Anyone with unexplained chest pain or neurologic deficits should seek medical evaluation. These caveats improve trust. Measurement converts belief into feedback. The text hints at outcomes. A stronger version would ask users to log a few markers. Breath ease at rest, perceived chest tightness, bowel comfort, leg heaviness, low back ache intensity, sleep quality. Rate each item before and after a session and over a week. This creates a small N of one trial and reduces bias. Placebo and context effects are real and useful. Ritual, counting, and breath create a frame of safety. That frame alone can reduce pain. The passage wisely avoids dismissing this. It blends mechanism with meaning. That improves results because humans respond to both. Limitations are clear. Evidence citations are absent here. Claims should be read as practice-based. Effects are likely modest. Tapping is not a substitute for care in serious disease. It is a low-cost adjunct that improves interoception and reduces guarding. That is still valuable. Overall, the section is strong pedagogy. It maps where, why, how, and what to expect. It balances traditional and modern language. It centers the user. It keeps the bar low. It suggests whole system effects through local acts without hype. Add explicit safety notes and a simple tracking plan, and it becomes a complete self-care module. Reproducible protocol. It starts with why the underarm matters, then gives how, then sets expectations, then reframes with classical and modern language, then adds attentional cues, dosage, portability, measurement, and safety. The structure reduces friction to action. A reader can practice minutes after reading. Physiological rationale is clear. The axilla houses lymph nodes, segments of the brachial plexus, and major vessels. It sits under the shoulder girdle, which stiffens with defensive postures. Protraction and elevation of the scapula, narrow rib mobility, and bias accessory breathing. Gentle percussion here can cue relaxation, soften guarding, and allow the diaphragm to descend. That yields a calmer pulse perception, slower breath, less neck overwork. No metaphysics is required for local effects. The posture argument is concrete. Worry rounds the shoulders, narrows the chest, and compresses the axilla. The text names this a seal. The metaphor is functional. A seal restricts flow and traps heat. Loosen the seal maps directly to the intervention. It keeps causality simple. Posture constrains, tapping loosens, breath expands. Technique is minimal and safe. Raise one arm to expose the hollow. Cup the opposite hand. Use light, springy taps and let the hand rebound. Cover front to back. Count 36 to 81. Switch sides. Breathe slowly through the nose. Relax jaw and gaze. Resonance, not force, is the key rule. The cupped palm generates a low-frequency wave without focal impact. This reduces risk of bruising while reaching deeper tissues with vibration. Expected sensations are plausible and specific. Warmth across the chest. A natural sigh. Quieter mental noise. These are common signs of parasympathetic shift and release of protective bracing. The instruction to reduce intensity of tender preserves safety, while acknowledging that tenderness often marks long-standing tension. The reader learns to titrate input rather than push through. Classical framing and modern framing run in parallel. Heartfire translates into threat downregulation, improved rib mechanics, and easier diaphragmatic descent. This dual vocabulary widens access. Readers who value traditional language feel included. Readers who prefer physiology can stay grounded. The section avoids grand claims and sticks to mechanisms that fit both maps. The note on axillary load is useful. Releasing mechanical pressure on nerves and vessels can ease vague arm aches and paresthesia, often misattributed to overuse alone. That sets a realistic benefit band. Subtle relief, not miracle cures. Attention training is built in. Imagery of a valve venting steam, a floating sternum, shoulder blades sliding. Counting taps as an anchor, returning to contact and rebound when the mind wanders. These cues keep the autonomic system in a safe, predictable loop. They also raise interoceptive accuracy, which correlates with better self-regulation. Dose guidance is pragmatic. 1 minute per side, morning and evening, is enough for many. A quick midday set on anxious days is suggested. Discretion is emphasized. You can do it in a parked car or a quiet corner. This increases adherence because the friction to practice is low. The tracking advice is strong behavior design. Resting breath count before and after. Ease of shoulder elevation. A simple log for sleep quality. Chest heaviness, startled awakenings. These are concrete, trackable markers that build evidence for the user and reduce recall bias. Repeatability, not drama, is your ally, is the right expectation frame. Safety guidance is practical. Avoid force. Stop if bruising appears. Wait for post-operative healing. Use oil if fabrics irritate. These rules prevent common errors. A fuller protocol could add cautions for active infection, lymphedema management plans, bleeding disorders, anticoagulation, or suspected thoracic outlet symptoms. The current text stays concise while signaling prudence. Pedagogy is clean. The section closes with a ritualized pause and body check. Arms resting. Feel the chest. Notice spaciousness and a steadier pulse. That teaches reinforcement and gratitude without decoration. Then it bridges to the next portal with a directional cue. Carry steadiness to the elbow bends. This maintains sequence memory and keeps momentum. Limits exist and are acknowledged implicitly. Effects are modest and cumulative. The practice is adjunctive, not a replacement for diagnosis or care. The text implies this by avoiding cure language and by suggesting logs and consistency rather than promises. What could sharpen further? Add a stop rule. If tingling worsens or pain radiates, reduce intensity, or stop and consult a clinician. Add a starter count for new users, e.g., 20 gentle taps building to 36 over a week. Offer a breath cadence, e.g., 4-second inhale, 6-second exhale to standardize parasympathetic bias. Suggest a pre- and post-posture photo to visualize scapular change for compliance. Net effect. The section operationalizes an accessible portal with clear biomechanics, a minimal kit, and high portability. It blends attentional training with gentle mechanical input. It teaches self-pacing and measurement. It avoids hype and respects constraints. As a module inside the 8-portal sequence, it stands alone yet fits the larger loop. Open the top gateway to restore breath and rhythm, then proceed downstream with that calm already on board. Turn to the inner crooks of the elbows. This seldom noticed terrain governs more than flexion and extension. It hosts surface points tied to the pericardium, the heart's guardian, and to the large and small intestines, the partners that sort nourishment from waste. When life hits hard, the pericardium absorbs the shock so the emperor organ is not jolted. That buffering leaves residue here as tightness, heat, and an odd mix of restlessness and fatigue. Meanwhile, the gut mirrors that unrest with bloating, irregularity, or cramping that does not square with diet alone. Technique mirrors the underarm method. Extend one arm and soften the elbow just enough to reveal the fold. Cup the opposite hand and deliver a sequence of springy taps along the crease from the thumb side to the little finger side. Count 36 to 81. Breathe through the nose and keep the shoulders relaxed. Switch arms and repeat. If the skin shows small, dusky dots after a diligent session, understand them as the surface expression of previously stagnant material being mobilized. They fade as flow improves. Expected sensations include a slow settling of the heartbeat, a wave of mental quiet, or a comfortable gurgle from the abdomen as motility resumes. For some, naps arrive more easily that night because the system no longer hums at the edge of alarm. If tenderness is sharp, lighten your touch and limit the session to a shorter count. Persist over days rather than forcing change in one go. The aim is to persuade, not to pummel. Practical enhancements are simple. Drink a glass of warm water after elbow work to support downstream clearance. If you do breathing practices, follow tapping with 3 slow cycles emphasizing long, easy exhales. Lengthening the out-breath reinforces the message of safety that tapping already sent. Desk workers can pair a 1-minute round with a brief forearm stretch to reduce the tendency to clench. People who ruminate late at night may find that an evening set prevents the familiar spiral before it builds. Now descend to the groins, the hinge where legs join the trunk. This portal speaks directly to reserves, the kidney system in the classical model, and influences sexual vitality, bone strength, and metabolic steadiness. In modern language, sitting collapses this region, slows lymphatic traffic, and dampens blood flow to tissues that need turnover. The result is heaviness, puffiness, and a sense of being stuck even when you are sleeping enough. By waking this fold, you light up the body's waste-clearing network and put charge back into your day. Technique here uses both hands at once. Stand with feet hip-width apart or sit tall. Cup each hand and tap simultaneously at the groin folds, avoiding direct pressure over obvious pulses. Work rhythmically for 36 to 81 taps. Pause, then complete a second pass if time allows. Keep breath smooth and imagine a pilot light warming at the base of the abdomen. Some feel a reliable surge of warmth and a clearer head within a minute. Common results include lighter legs, reduced lower belly bloating, and an easier time maintaining even energy through the afternoon. People who train intensely often report quicker recovery because the lymphatic network is less clogged. Those coping with sugar swings sometimes notice fewer dips when this portal is part of a daily ritual, supporting food choices and sleep. Coupled with gentle walking, the practice also helps cellulite appear less prominent by improving local circulation and drainage. Use care if you have inguinal hernias or recent procedural scars. Begin at the edges, work softly, and stop with any sharp discomfort. Pregnant people should consult their provider before adding new bodywork. If you sit for long intervals, set a timer to stand, breathe, and do 1 light round every couple of hours. Small doses compound. Taken together, the elbow and groin portals calm rumination, smooth digestion, and restore access to deeper reserves. They remind the system that nourishment, protection, elimination, and reproduction are siblings rather than rivals for attention. When these domains cooperate, irritation recedes and steadiness returns. That balance sets the stage for the last pair of hinges behind the knees, where circulation and spinal ease come back into dialogue. Continue downward now and meet the rear knee creases with care. Finish at the backs of the knees. These creases act like master switches for the posterior line of the body, influencing the calves, hamstrings, pelvis, and lower spine. When we sit, the folds compress. When we stand still for long stretches, the veins labor to move blood uphill. Both patterns leave the legs heavy and the low back tight. A few moments of rhythmic percussion here can restore a sense of spring from heel to crown. Technique is again minimal. Stand and hinge forward slightly, or sit at the edge of a chair with the feet grounded. Cup both hands and tap the creases behind the knees at the same time, avoiding the hollow of the back of the knee if tenderness is sharp. Count 36 to 81 taps. Many feel warmth spreading down into the calves and up along the spine, as if a taut string slackened. Walk a few steps afterward and notice the change in stride. Having met all 4 pairs, you can now weave them into a brief daily ritual. Stand with feet steady and take 3 slow breaths to mark a clear beginning. Tap the left underarm with the right hand, then the right underarm with the left. Move to the left elbow crease with the right hand, then the right crease with the left. Use both hands at the groins. Finish with both hands behind the knees. At each site, choose a count between 36 and 81 and keep breath smooth. Let the sequence travel from top to bottom like a small river emptying into the sea. Perform the round upon waking to disperse the night's stiffness and to prime the day with easy breath. Repeat late afternoon or early evening to shed gathered tension and prepare for deeper rest. The session lasts only a couple of minutes, yet the repetition teaches the nervous system to expect relief and to fall into balance with less prompting each time. Once a week, jot a few notes about sleep, mood, digestion, and leg comfort, so you can see change rather than guess at it. Your notes are your mirror. Treat this as a moving meditation rather than a chore. The value lies in consistency and attention, not heroic effort. If you miss a session, resume at the next opportunity without judgment. If time is short, 2 or 3 sites done with full presence often outperform a rushed circuit. If a portal is too tender on a given day, skip it and return when the body says yes. This is a conversation with your own systems, and conversations proceed best when you listen as much as you speak. With practice, the 8 gateways cease to feel exotic and simply become part of how you maintain yourself, like brushing teeth or walking after meals. You begin to catch stagnation early and clear it before it matures into ache and irritability. You sense the first signs of overload and know which portal to visit for steadying. Over time, autonomy grows. You lean less on crisis fixes because you have a method in your hands. Share the practice with someone who will benefit. Keep exploring related lessons when the opportunity arises. And above all, keep returning to the simple acts that invite flow. Notice. Tap, breathe, and let the current move. Nothing here asks for belief in spectacle. It asks for contact and attention repeated until your system remembers a more natural baseline. That is the continuity running through the Nile stories and the Chinese river map. Knowledge that moves because it is practical, portable, and rooted in patterns any person can feel. In this way, self-care is not a luxury. It is hygiene for the channels that carry your life. Keep the appointments anyway. Over months, you will recognize that the old posture of bracing fades. The chest settles, the gut works more reliably, and your legs ask to move. The map is simple, but the returns are deep because you are cultivating relationship with your own currents. If this process resonates, mark today as the day you started and continue tomorrow. Invite others to work alongside you, compare notes, and keep the river of practice alive by using it.